What's up, everybody? Alex from Columbus here, and welcome to episode number 24 of What's on Tap, the sort of random amalgamation of thoughts and records and beers and rants, maybe, because this one's going to be a rant. This is going to be a little bit of a fun one, at least for me. Sending you my condolences for those of you who are going to subject yourself to this. But at the time of recording, it is Wednesday before Thanksgiving here in the States. I know most of my viewership is in the States, but not all of them. And so this is a fun time. This is one of my favorite times of the year because I get a little bit of some time off of work. I basically get this week off. It is finally cold and frigid and windy. And for me, I'm a homebody, man. I just like kind of sitting at home, putting on the slippers, hanging out with the cat, pretending I have a fireplace, drinking beer and listening to music, man. Like, what could be better? And this What's on Tap is actually going to feature a couple of great things, at least for me. Number one, the return of a legend, my favorite beer of all time. That's right, it is back in action this year after being out of commission, God, the last 5 years, something like that. So we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to show sort of the typical highlights of records that I've been listening to, spinning over the past week or so, along with a couple of new records, that sort of thing. And then depending on how the day goes and how much this beer hits me, I might go into a little bit of a record store day rant. And no, it's probably not going to be the type of rant you think it is, because at this point, it seems to be really sexy, and I mean sexy, to just shit all over Record Store Day. And not only Record Store Day, but like the people who enjoy it. And I don't know, I found myself in this weird thing of not really knowing exactly how to adequately communicate my feelings, but it has seemed to wrap itself up in one of those things of like, if a lot of people enjoy it, then there have to be the people who hate it, and they need to let people know they hate it. And hey, I mean, to each their own, man. Like, I want people to be able to share their feelings without fear of passive aggression from this guy. But I'll show some examples, again, depending on how things hit. So, enough blabbing. Like I said, my favorite beer of all time is back after being out for 4 or 5 years. Okay, so story time. This is all beer talk. If you don't like the beer talk, whatever, fast forward to whenever I'm showing records. But I'm so excited for this. One of my favorite breweries, if kind of the brewery I grew up on, if you will, is Founders. Grand Rapids, Michigan. I discovered Founders. I mean, they're huge. They're everywhere. They're all over the world. But I discovered them when I was in grad school. I went to grad school just outside of Grand Rapids. And that was the social place for me and my cohort to hang out. So I went from like a non-beer drinker to someone who probably had a bit of a drinking problem, basically over 2 years of grad school. So we spent a lot of time at Founders, and since then I kind of became like a Founders fanboy. I was really paying attention to all the releases they had, especially their barrel age program, was always on the lookout for like the latest and greatest rare stuff. And this beer in particular had sort of become Founders' most famous, most sought after, most, insane beer. Now, 10, 15 years ago, back before craft beer bubble, it's similar to records, any sort of hobby or niche hobby, this was a beer that people would line up for. Their local store would get maybe a case, and they would have a limit of 1 bottle per person, and people would line up at 5 a.m. And it was wild, right? It was like if you were able to get your hands on one, you were some kind of, lucky person. Now, it's like they have a gigantic warehouse, in factory they can produce as much as they want. But still, I didn't get a chance to get a couple of few years ago, but I just picked up some 4-packs recently. So all that to say, the beer that I'm talking about is the famous Founders CBS. Now, this is a little bit of a throwback. CBS stands for Canadian Breakfast Stout. I know we got some Canadians watching here. Now, funny enough, the original logo of CBS used to have a Mountie on there, and then apparently the Canadian Mountie, whatever y'all call it, sent, I don't know that they sent like a cease and desist. I think they just sent like a kindly worded like, hey, please don't put us on your stuff. Or, you know, show it in a negative way or something like that. So it no longer has the Mountie, but still, it's got this Wicked Horse, CBS, standing for Canadian Breakfast Stout. What is it? It is an Imperial Stout brewed with chocolate and coffee and aged in bourbon barrels with maple syrup. And there's is your Canadian tie-in, is with the maple syrup. Now, here's some, I'm going to get into some nerdy beer talk. This is going to be a long video. I don't care. I'm on break. Nerdy beer talk. So, historically, the first beer that really blew up for Founders was Founders KBS. That's why KBS CBS, which was Kentucky Breakfast Stout. Breakfast Stout because, it's got the coffee and the chocolate in it. And it was aged in bourbon barrels. Now, what do you get when you age an Imperial Stout in bourbon barrels? Well, those barrels used to hold, obviously, bourbon. A lot of that bourbon, both the actual alcohol as well as the flavors of that bourbon, are still stuck in those wood tannins of the barrel. And so when you put something in a barrel like that for a year, like Founders does, that Imperial Stout now takes on a lot of those flavors that were left behind by the barrel. And so a lot of times those flavors can get off, vanilla, oak, charred oak, a certain dryness, obviously additional alcohol, that sort of thing. Now, here's what's interesting. I didn't check for sure. When they originally did CBS, it was aged in bourbon barrels that previously held maple syrup. And so it was a bourbon barrel first, and then it held maple syrup, and then they aged the stout in there. That was the original, whatever it was, 15 years ago. Now, with the commercial description saying aged in bourbon barrels with maple syrup, I don't know if that just means they added maple syrup later, if they added maple syrup into the barrels. Quite frankly, I don't care, because it's an Imperial Stout with coffee, chocolate, aged in bourbon barrels with maple syrup. And that to me just sounds absolutely perfect. So this has been sitting out now for about 25 minutes or so. On big Imperial Stouts like this, the closer you can get to sort of room temp, I know that scares some people, the better. I prefer mine around 55, 60 degrees. Temperature-wise. We're at 11.7% alcohol by volume. Let's get a pour on here and let's have some fun. Of course, we're drinking Founders, so we're going to be out of our Founders Brewing Company glass. You know this is going to come out like motor oil. Let's give it the pour. Some smoke coming off of there. Nice dark pour. Actually, I'm seeing through it a little bit as it comes out. Not as dark as I was anticipating. Of course, in the glass, I mean, that's dark as not. Dark as hell. That little lick, baby girl. All right, so there we are. Yeah, I mean, it's completely dark in here. Up to the ring light. No light is coming through whatsoever. Even as I was pouring it, though, you can kind of see there's a little bit of red in there. Pretty dark mocha colored head, actually. You can kind of see that on there. Not a ton of head on there, about a half a finger maybe. As I give it a little bit of a swirl, a little bit more will develop, and you see those sort of alcohol legs that are just sort of coating the side of that glass. That is a thing of beauty. Let's get that nose in there. Man, yeah, that is it. It's interesting when you have like these beers that you sort of grew up on, right? That you had so much of, and they played like such this, as if a beer played an important part of my life. Who am I? It smells sweet. I almost get like a fudgy, marshmallowy type of character. Obviously, neither of those are technically flavors in here, but that's what I get. A little bit of alcohol, a little bit of booze. I can't tell if it's just booze because it's an 11.7. Or if I'm getting a little bit, I can pull out the bourbon there as well. Yeah, definitely chocolate, coffee. Yeah, a little bit of that oak tannin. It smells amazing. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Happy holidays out there to anybody celebrating, and let's have a good night. Cheers. Ooh. Okay. A little hotter than I remember. Hotter meaning a little bit boozier than I remember. I mean, it's 11.7%. Big dark chocolate on the back. Really on the back end, it's more of a kind of like a bitterness, not a hot bitterness, but a dark chocolate meets black coffee bitterness. If you like dark chocolate and you like that sort of natural, cacao, whatever you want to call it, then you'll like that sort of bitterness there. Body is probably lower side of full. I mean, it's a thick beer. I've had thick beer, but not, not wild. Good carbonation. There is a big pop of alcohol right up front. And then certainly that back smoothens it off. Smoothens? Yeah, I guess so. With that chocolate. Maple syrup? No, there's definitely a sweetness. I don't know that I would pull out and be like, oh, that's definitely maple. Oh, man. I mean, it's just on a cold night, man, this is all I want. I just want to sit here and just sip on this. A little fire going. Come on. I gotta slow down on that or I'm gonna get fucked up. Man, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic. I'm so glad it's back. I'm gonna need a little bit, a minute of it. It's hotter than I remember. I used to remember being so smooth. Barely having any alcohol in there whatsoever. That's got a little bit of an alcohol pop to it. Again, it's a 12% beer. It should. Okay, 12 minutes in. Jesus. Let's show some records before I get into a stupid rant. So, first record I'm going to show came in courtesy of my friend, your friend, Adam Tiro from the band The Freight, who was kind enough to send this record to me, Tales of Maybe, that came out earlier this year. Really awesome Boston area band, again, led by Adam Tiro, who's been kind of making some rounds in the vinyl community. I mean, he's always watching, he's always commenting, always being super supportive, great taste in music. He's done some of the interviews and podcasts. I know he sent this record to a lot of VC people for their review and all that kind of stuff. And this is awesome. Now, here's what's really great about this record. Well, let's talk about the music first. It is about, the music most importantly. This is just good old-fashioned, this is like no bells and whistles, just good old-fashioned, like kind of rock and roll. There's certainly maybe a little bit of like Southern rock kind of like sprinkled in there. I actually told him, and I'll share the same thing here. His guitar playing, Adam's lead singer, lead guitarist, his guitar playing is certainly influenced by Dickie Betts. There are moments with some of the lead kind of runs that I hear that I'm like, oh, that's a full Dickie. And but fantastic. I mean, again, it's not heavy. There are some different tracks that are maybe a little bit more hard rock, but this is almost like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to try to like goose it up into something that it's not, but like, to me, this is just really solid, inoffensive rock and roll from 2025, which, to be honest, we need more of. Now, here's what I love about it, and obviously this is why they've been so kind of involved, I think, in the vinyl community. Hype sticker here, independent rock and roll from Boston, Mass. Lacquer's cut from tape by Ryan K. Smith at Sterling Sound. This was a limited first pressing of 500 copies, pressed at Fidelity Record Pressing. The source here, 24 to 48 to tape to console to the lathe. And just really awesome. So kind of going like the whole, analog audiophile route, and it sounds amazing. The music's amazing, and Adam's the man. So Adam, if you're watching, thanks so much, brother. This means the world, and this is some fantastic stuff. If you all don't know this record or need to hear this record, I'll have the information for it, how to order it, how to listen to it, all that stuff in the description. But check it out if you're just into some good old-fashioned rock and roll that's coming out in 2025. Speaking of records coming out in 2025, this came out in 2015, but we're celebrating a 10-year reissue of it because I think it's either been out of print or was never actually on vinyl. And we're going to Coal Mine Records here for their reissue of the Monophonics Sound of Sinning. Sound of Sinning came out in 2015. This was before the Monophonics were on Coal Mine, but obviously they have rights to it now, and so they reissued it. Monophonics have sort of become one of the Coal Mine sweethearts, especially in this whole psychedelic soul revival that's going on, led by Kelly Finnegan, who's just an absolute brilliant genius. I really dig this sort of older Monophonic sound. To me, this definitely leans a little bit more like, yeah, I'm not going to say like psych in like terms of 1969 psych, but the psychedelic soul, a little bit heavier, a little bit more raw. And while today, as amazing as they are and how much I love the records, they're a little bit smoother, a little bit more polished today. This still has a little bit of that hunger going with it. So yeah, a modern psych soul masterpiece is what your hype sticker says here. And I gotta agree. Of course, I got the Coal Mine Web Store exclusive wax. She's a beaut. That was limited to 300. I think sold out pretty quickly. So yeah, if y'all are into the whole neo soul revival thing, check this out. It's in your local record stores. Sound of Sinning, Monophonics 10-year anniversary reissue. An absolute corker. All right, let's keep it moving here. This is a shout out actually to Randall Nelson, if Randall Nelson's out there watching all the way from Kansas City. So Randall was doing a response to Steve, I think it was a response to Steve, A is for Alice, B is for Bob, his jazz contest sort of thing, asking if jazz sucked. And Randy was showing some of the jazz records he has, and he showed one where I was like, how do I not have that? How did I miss that? And the reason I missed it was because it kind of came out right as I was getting into the collecting side of things, and it was before I was actually into jazz. And so when he showed it, I was like, man, I got to pick that up. And I did. So Randy, if you're watching, call yourself an influencer, young man. But it is Jackie McLean's It's Time from 1965. This is a Blue Note Tone Poet reissue. Of course, all the audiophile bells and whistles here with the amazing, still crackly gatefold. What a package we have here. But for me, this is all about the lineup. Jackie McLean, of course, on alto sax. What got me, though, was the lineup here. The great Charles Tolliver on trumpet, who would go on to form and create the Strata East label, and now is kind of overseeing a lot of these Strata East reissues, which is amazing. Herbert the Hancock all over that piano. Cecil McBee, who played on a bunch of stuff on Strata East too, I think, on bass, and then Roy Haynes on drums. What a lineup. This is, I mean, if you know Charles Tolliver, he can get out there a little bit, and this record is out there a little bit. This stretches out a little bit. So if you are not a fan, I mean, this is not like Sun Ra or even Pharoah Sanders type spiritual stuff yet. I wouldn't even call this free. This is definitely kind of steeping in a little bit more into, no, I don't want to even say leaning post-bop because we're talking 65 here. But this stretches the boundaries a little bit. Again, if you know what Jackie was doing and you know what Charles Tolliver was doing, and actually Cecil McBee, then you know what this is going to sound like. But I absolutely love this. And I didn't even know that this was out there as a reissue because it came out in 2020. So I had to snaggle this real quick. And I'm really glad I did. So Randy, thanks for getting that loaded up for us here. All right, let's enter the phase of just a whole bunch of shit I've been listening to because it's a good time. How about this absolute perfect garagey psychedelic pop record, man? The Electric Prunes. I guess technically, is this called The Electric Prunes, self-titled, but obviously with the tag I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night, which is just a fantastic psychedelic pop song on that classic Reprise Tritone, Tricolor Steamboat label, an absolute classic. This was what, 67, something like that? What a record this is. Absolute fantastic. I love that. This is always funny because I show this and it's like the vinyl people, man, they're gonna just they can't take it anymore, man, because we need to know how things are recorded and blah 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 blah. And I can't believe this Pat Metheny group record from 1984 was recorded digitally. Oh man, you can't record digital and still be cool. I'm in the vinyl community, man. First Circle. Who does this have on here? Well, of course, with the group, you got Lyle Mays as always, Steve Rodby, Pedro Aznar and Paul Wardico on here, 1984. I mean, Pat Metheny is just all class all the time. Some kind of odd stuff on here. This opens up with this whole like forward march thing, which is kind of bizarre. First circle title track is absolutely beautiful. And then some great stuff on side B too. So yeah, always a good time spinning Pat Metheny, even if it's a digital recording and not all analog. I can't believe it. Oh my God. All right, here's a band that is like so far outside of normally my wheelhouse. I don't know what it is about them that I love them so much, and I love this album. I think because it's like, it's so of the time. I don't know if it's aged well or not. And part of me thinks that's why I like it more, because it kind of is cheesy. And this whole record just sounds like, it just sounds like a Russian soundtrack to like a really cheesy 80s movie. It's the Sisters of Mercy with Floodland. So what do you call it? Gothic rock, dark wave, more than post-punk, that sort of thing. This came out, 1987? Again, this is not typically stuff I listen to. I don't know if it was... I probably heard This Corrosion at some point out there, or Lucretia, or however you say it. Probably somewhere I really got into it. But for me, I remember hearing like Dominion and To Mother Russia. And I was like, this stuff's so cool. You know, it's like they got some cheesy name for like, you know, even the drum machine has a name. I forget the stupid drum machine's name. Somebody's going to say it. Whatever. It's like, you know, they pretend it's like a band number. It's not. I think it's just two people who kind of lead this. 2 people, 3 people? Either way. You know, it's all drum machines all the time. Super dark and gothic and just weird, but cool. The track for me that always gets me is 1959. In 1959. I love 1959. Yeah, it's got like some Cold War Russian type things going on, but who knows? I'm all in. I love the Sisters of Mercy. This and First and Last and Always, great records. And I think those are kind of like the 2 they did. I know they did an EP. I don't know if they ever did like another full length. Let's go jazz fusion a little bit here with an important record, but I got some thoughts on it. So it's the self-titled Jaco Pastorius record from 1977. This was, I believe, an early, maybe in 1980 reissue on Epic. An important record. Herbie Hancock's on here. You got a lot. Randy Brecker's on here. David Sanborn's on. I mean, you got a lot of different great players on here. This is a little bit of an inconsistent record. I think I found myself really digging in to side 2 a lot more than side 1. You got some schmaltzy, kind of stringsy type stuff, which isn't necessarily bad. But, you know, you're coming in, you're listening to Jaco, man, and you just want this thing to be burning. I will say, there is no doubt that you are listening to a solo record from a bassist when you hear this, right? Like sometimes you play some jazz or jazz fusion records and you're like, I don't know who is actually in charge here because it's pretty, you know, equitable across the board. With this, there's no doubt that it's a Jaco record and that it's a bass, you know, a bassist record, if you will. But yeah, an important record nonetheless. And I think right around the same time that Heavy Weather came out, right? Heavy Weather was that 76? Anyway, let's keep it moving. Let's go to Vinyl Me Please. And I think something Vinyl Me Please did very good. I think this is, I don't know how, I was going to say, I think this has gone up in value. What does that mean? Like it was $30 and now it's worth $32. Anyway, I thought they did a great job with this. Ramones Rocket to Russia on Vinyl Me Please. This got, again, Ryan K. Smith, Sterling Sound, all that type of stuff. So, hey, I mean, same mastering and all that type of stuff as the Freight record, which is pretty cool. But, I mean, what more can you say about Rocket to Russia, man? Whole bunch of songs. They're all like 2.5 minutes long, and they're all freaking fantastic. You know, Bad Company is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, finally. And I don't really care, because to me, I've always been a much bigger fan of Free. This was Free's 5th record here, Free at Last. Okay, I go back and forth. Do we love that album art? Do we hate it? Or like call it album art, call it like the typeface and the font. This sort of bubble art thing. I guess they're in the clouds, Free at Last. I don't know. But this was this was their fifth album. Shortly after they sort of like broke up in 71 and then get back together for this record in 72. This did have, I guess, the minor hit, a little bit of love. I believe if you give a little bit of love for those you live with, a little bit of love has got to come on. You all know it. All right. How about some freaky jazz fusion? And every time I spin this record, I love it more and more. Coliseum 2, Electric Savage, with, of course, the great Gary Moore. I almost forgot his name. Ripping on guitar here. You also got Don Airey on here. John Heisman, who, God, he was coming from what? Soft Machine? Am I making that up? We just lost him a couple years ago. John Moll on bass. Man, what a great record. The only problem with it is every once in a while Gary decides that he wants to sing, and us jazz fusion people wonder why. Let's go back actually to some Coal Mine, but the Remind label. So Coal Mine has obviously Coal Mine Records. They have Karma Chief, which is the sister label, which specializes in all types of music, not just sort of that soul revival stuff. And then Remind, which is a reissue series specializing in sort of lost archival old school soul. And this is one of them that is absolutely fantastic if you don't have it. And this is the record Uptown by Gloria Barnes, originally released on the Maple Records label back in 1971. Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely fantastic. She does, I mean, just an amazing soulful voice. Sound quality on here is absolutely outstanding. They, of course, have like the full story on here of who wrote what and where. It looks like she or her band were from Dayton, so this has some Ohio connection to it. But if you're into some old school soul, that's actually old school, check out this. There's a couple of them that they've done, I believe. You have this, Gloria Barnes, and then Barbara Howard is the other one who, again, kind of a classic soul singer, or her stuff's available on the Coal Mine website as well. I spun this. This does not happen much. Doesn't happen much. Spun this record, loved it so much, I said, you know what, I'm going to go spin it again. Wilco AM, their debut, and actually it's kind of good timing because on Friday, Jesus Christ, Record Store Day, Black Friday, they are reissuing Uncle Tupelo's debut. No. Sorry, they're issuing Sunvolt's debut, Trace. Sunvolt came from Uncle Tupelo, and you know what I mean. Okay. So the whole story was that you had like Trace coming out and this one came out. And they both came out, I think, in 1995 at the same time. And it was sort of like a battle. Like, what's better? Who's better? Like, what is the better Uncle Tupelo, you know, whatever, sort of spinoff. To me, Sunvolt, I've listened to that record. Trace, I got no issues with it. It's just a little bit not quite in the pocket with what I like. I don't know what it is with Wilco, man. Maybe just because I'm a sad white boy, but they can write a sad white boy song even back, 30 years ago. So, yeah, all in on Wilco, and what a great record. AM. This was the Rhino High Fidelity. I don't know what number I got. Don't really care. And how about this with a little bit of a deep cut? The first solo record released by Steven Wilson, who's gone through a lot of different changes. This is Insurgentes, I think it's called, or Insurgents. I don't know. Insurgentes. I love that cover. That is a really creepy kind of like Breaking Bad inspired cover. Very odd artistic gatefold there. Fantastic. A lot of people don't like this record because the best would be, yet to come. Grace for Drowning was amazing. And then you get into The Raven and Hank and Out a Race and all these amazing, just incredible Steven Wilson records. This record's less kind of proggy in that way, a little bit more ethereal. This actually, to me, this sounds more like what he's doing now. And so it's interesting that a lot of people are like, oh, he's not prog anymore. He left his blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, actually, like the stuff he's doing now and has been doing over the last 4 or 5 years probably sounds a little bit more in line with this, where it's a little bit more soundscapey, ethereal, weird, all that type of thing, versus just good old-fashioned prog rock. So yeah, that's what we're doing there. And so, yeah, well, that puts a wrap on all this stuff. Now, do we get into a little bit of a rant time? Let me get a little bit of a drink here. Well, maybe I'll do a full rant in a different video. Those are always fun. I think, let's see. We have Record Store Day coming up on Friday. If you pay attention and watch a lot of these YouTube videos of people in the VC and, you know, the record community, the vinyl community, all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of drama surrounding Record Store Day, Black Friday, because we'll call him an influencer of sorts, got into a bit of a tizzy with the Record Store Day people. It's this whole thing. One of the things I found fascinating, I'm not going to completely dissect that. There's a ton of other channels who have done that and do it a lot better. But here's what I find fascinating. Beware, and again, like of the 1,200 people who subscribe to my channel, I don't know what the actual demographic is of people who watch the videos, right? So like, I don't know exactly who I'm talking to at this point, but I'm going to assume there's at least somebody out there who is maybe new to collecting records. Maybe you're considering doing like the YouTube thing too. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like that's just kind of how these things go. Beware of the people on YouTube and the people who've been doing this for a while, and that, like any other hobby, they're really big gatekeepers. What do I mean by that? It's this idea that, take record collecting, but again, it's true for any hobby a lot of times, you know, if I've been doing this for so long and I've paid my dues and I've been a martyr for the cause, and I've been doing YouTube and Record Store Day since 2007, you know, and all this kind of stuff. Therefore, I know so much more about the way things used to be done and what's good and what's not. And whatever's going on right now is not, you know, is not what's actually happening. That was a really terrible way of explaining all of that. You know, one of the things that has come up that somebody said is, I miss the old Record Store Day where people would line up at 3 in the morning and then walk out with 10 or 12 records at 8 a.m. I miss that Record Store Day. Is that not what's happening? Again, not all record stores are, you know, not all Record Store Days are the same for everybody. I'll put it out there first. I'm very lucky that I live in a city. I don't live on the outskirts of the city. I live in a city where there are 6 places that are doing Record Store Day. And they all do them really well. And I go to a lot of them, if not all of them, on Record Store Day. And it's easy. It's just easy. I understand that that is much easier than somebody who lives in a place where they are an hour away from a small mom and pop record store that doesn't barely get any. Like, I understand. I want to recognize where I'm at with that. But I've been doing Record Store Day now for 6 years. Every time I've done it, the people are in line early. They seem to be getting in line earlier. Are there years that there are more people in line than previous? Sure. But the thing is a lot of these, I'm not going to say old heads. When I say old head, I don't mean like they're old. I mean like the people who have been doing this for a while. They complain about the list every time. And they say, there's only probably 3 to 5 things on this list that I'm even interested in. Is that not good? Is that not good? Do you really think that lists are going to come out so that you can get 15 records you like? And if the list doesn't provide you with that opportunity, then therefore it's a bad list, and Record Store Day has lost its way, and it's turned corporate, bro. It's all corporate, bro, sir. Like, I always love that. Yeah, I have a local place in town who, they're closed on Black Friday, and they hate Record Store Day because it's, you know, it's the capitalist pigs and blah, 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 blah. Look, I'll burn capitalism down to the ground as much as the next person. But sir, you are an entrepreneur. You are a record store owner. You are existing in this business space to make this money. What do you mean? And so, as if like, you know, Mr. Record Store Day is like in the back with his cigar and, you know, his like he's on Epstein Island, like, do it again, boy. You know, like, whatever. And I get it. the whole like B-sides and alternates and demos and box sets, the glorified bootleg type live stuff isn't for everybody. But you know what? If you love that band or you love that artist or you love that album, then it is, right? Like, you don't get to look at, I get it, right? And I'll say this too. See, now we're getting going, boys. There is a difference between, hey, Record Store Day is not for me. There's not much on the list that I'm interested in. It's just not for me. I don't want to go wait. I don't want to go this. I know plenty of people who are like, I don't do it. It's not my thing. I love that. And I support that. I'm not going to try to change your mind. Like, that's you. That to me, though, is very, very different than I'm going to use my place, which is a position of power and influence in social capital on YouTube, to scream from the rooftops how terrible Record Store Day is and how there's nothing for anybody and it's not as good as it used to. And I remember the days when this and this and this and this. I hate to tell you, sir, if you can't find something on the list that appeals to you, that says more about you than the list. Because every single Record Store Day, there is someone out there who's waiting in line to get something. Now, here's what I'm getting at with the gatekeeping, right? That individual and the other individuals, when they are saying Record Store Day is not like it's used to, think about what they're really saying, right? It's codified language. They are not saying, oh, Record Store Day isn't like as crowded and as popular as it used to be. Are you sure? I guarantee you it is. I guarantee you it is. The problem with it, though, is you don't see like the 12-year-old who's out at 4 a.m. with her dad to get the Taylor Swift 7-inch. You don't view that as like a real record collector. You don't view that as like a real RSD experience, right? It's only when they're like middle-aged fat guys that lack friends where I gotta find that, that psych record that's never been reissued, and therefore that's that's the real record collector, right? Those are the ones who deserve Record Store Day. All these, the teens or the younger generation or the people who are out there with their parents that are just buying 7-inches or buying no. They're not the real community. They're not real record collectors. And that gets into this other point too. I'm going to make a whole video about this. This is just a teaser, if you will, right? Like, you don't realize, like, the people on YouTube that talk about records, we are not indicative or representative of the greater community, right? Like, just because we've turned on a phone and talk into it and post it on the internet does not mean that we represent anyone, right? Like, if you go into any record store in America, anywhere, and 100 people walk in to the record store, what percentage, how many of those 100 people that walk in have any idea who Kevin Gray or Bernie Grundman is, right? Have any idea what MoFi Gate is? Have any concern in the world about how many copies of a certain record are getting pressed for Record Store Day? How many of those people actually give a flying fuck about another Motley Crue picture disc? Well, that's the joke. They probably do. Because while we sit here and we're like, fucking people with their picture disc, I don't know why they keep doing picture discs, because people keep buying them. But just because you don't buy them doesn't mean that it's not real. And I think that's where my frustration comes in, is that this whole fiasco, which has been really one-sided, and you're not a martyr for a cause. Like, it doesn't matter if you want to throw it on Reddit or if you want to post it all over Instagram, like all those different things. Like, again, you might have some followers who are like, oh, this list sucks, this list sucks. I guarantee people are going to be there. It's going to be 20 degrees here on Friday morning. 20 degrees. And there are going to be people of all ages, of all genders, of all generations who are out and about and happy to be there and excited to be there. And so me or somebody else, who are we to sit there and shit on their day and be like, well, it's too bad the list sucks because I don't have my blah, blah, blah. You know what the list never sucks for? Jazz fans. Jazz, there's always plenty. There's almost too much jazz. You can't afford it, right? But again, like, that's a specific thing. Like, this idea that there's going to be a list that is perfectly curated to exactly what you like so that you should get 15 records that you walk out with. Man. Also, by the way, records a little bit different now than they were 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago, they could repress a lot of the shit that hasn't been done. Now, everything has been done to death. You got to understand that there's probably not much still out there that hasn't been done, which is why they're leaning on the demos or the live things or all those different things. Also, most of the time, those like demos, live, outtakes, all those different things are usually part of releases that were previously released as like a CD or special edition box set 15 or 20 years ago, and now they're just getting released to vinyl. So it's not like these are brand new releases. It's like they've existed before. It's going to be fine. The point is, and I said this before on some of my other rants, right? Like, let people do what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, have fun with it. But I don't put up with the gatekeeping thing, right? Like, again, we live in this world with all of our live streams and the audio files and all these hot topics that we bring up on these bi-weekly basis, all these different things. And this is no shit talking to those people because they're brilliant and they're doing a really great job. That does not represent 2% of the people who are waiting in line for record store day. That does not represent 2% of the people who are in any given record store at any given time ever. Doesn't represent them. The vast majority of these people do not care about pressing plants or pressing quantities or where it was mastered or even how it's packaged. They just don't. And we are not better people than they are simply because we do care about those things, right? But when we sit there and shit on them or pretend that their experience is somehow less meaningful or less important or less, whatever, less meaningful to the greater vinyl experience because we're these big bad YouTubers that have been doing this for so long and they're just these children who are looking for the new Billie Eilish and therefore they're not even real people. They don't even know what record store day is. They don't even know what we had to do, right? It's the gatekeeping bullshit, man. Every single record store I've done, people have been lined the fuck up and they're excited to be there. And guess what? If they're not, they're probably not out there. And that's fine. But this idea that it sucks, it's not what it used to be, it's just a money grab. For who? Who's it a money grab for? The labels? Okay. So I'm guessing though that, okay, so if you really do want to say it's just a cash grab for the labels, that's fine. I would believe that. Isn't every single thing that a label does a cash grab? And they're only making money based on what you buy, right? So if they put out 2,000 Fleetwood Mac demos and people buy 2,000 Fleetwood Mac demos, is that a cash grab? Why are you upset about that? Because 2,000 people bought it because that's what they wanted to buy. Like, you're making it seem like people are like forced to buy this shit. That's not true. And I get it. Some people will say like it's unfair for the record stores because they can't send product back. Well, obviously they can't send it back. What's the label going to do with it, right? They're not sellers. If you don't want to send it back, don't order as much shit. I don't know. And for the record stores themselves, there are plenty of record stores who just don't participate because they don't place value on those new items, right? Like all their shit is in like used, rare, stuff, and they hold a bunch back and they throw a bunch out during the day and it's still a celebration, right? But I don't necessarily feel bad for those stores. The same way I don't feel bad for like the big stores that order $200,000 in product and may or may not move it, right? I mean, the reality is that a $40 record on record store day probably costs that record store $30, maybe $28. So, they're not making a ton off of that anyway, but it's such a big day in celebration. And of course, other people come in and buy stuff, right? All right, I got to shut this down, man, because it's about to be bad. I might do a full other rant on this. I'm going to keep on sipping this, though. Get after it. I'm going to throw on some more music and enjoy the day and the life. I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving, who's celebrating. If you're doing the Black Friday thing, if you're not, don't matter, don't care. Just stop shitting on people. I don't know. This is my thing. I say that as I'm like sitting here and bitching about people. Hypocrites. It takes one to know one. Anyway, thanks for subjecting yourself to this misery as I do every day. And we'll see you on the next one. Drink beer, listen to records. Bye.